I love gardening. Anything, flowers, perennials, vegetables, fruits. I love getting out in the yard and planting things. And I happen to have a teenage daughter who is completely plant obsessed. And so, because of that, this year she's been taking Guest Hollow's botany course. We thought that as we moved into the spring semester, it would be really great for her to do a project in partnership with me on planning out our garden for this year as kind of a big culmination of everything she's learned in her botany course so far. So today I'm going to show you a little bit of the garden planning that my daughter and I have been doing for this coming spring. Hey guys, and welcome back to my Practically Imperfect Life. If you've been watching for a while, you know that I am loving gardening. I had a really fantastic harvest last year, and we do canning and preserving of things. I have already started ordering stuff for spring. I did a big seed haul in one of my day in the life videos, and I've got a couple of really cool things that have just arrived that I'm really excited to show you that will make our garden just so much easier to get started this year. Now, I have a teenager who is taking a botany course this year from Guest Hollow, and it is all things plants. I mean, she is learning how plants work. She's learning about photosynthesis in detail. She's learning about different types of plants that have been impactful in history, how flowers are named, interesting information about trees. There's just so much covered in the Guest Hollow botany course. If you have a teen who is plant obsessed, like mine is, like her whole room is covered in plants, you should really consider this course. Through videos and documentaries, hands-on experiments, and some just amazing books, she has been learning so much. And we thought that it would be fun for us to work together on planning and getting things prepared for our garden this year. We live on a couple of acres. We have about 3.5 acres that we live on, and we have a fairly good-sized garden to start with. We have a big barn on the property, and we have a garden that runs the whole length of the barn. And that one has been used mostly for vegetables for us the last couple of years. We've also done a lot of planting kind of around the home, but this year we wanted to do a really big increase to our garden size. On the far side of our barn, we have a huge area that currently is just grass, and we want to turn that into not one, but 2 different types of garden beds. We want to have one that will be solely dedicated to vining plants. So our squashes, our watermelons, zucchini, pumpkins, things of that nature that just kind of go, a little out of control. And that way they can kind of have their space to go nuts. And we really wanted to do a cut flower garden. Now, I've never done a cut flower garden. I've had flowers in different places around my home that have been, there for the sole purpose of cutting, but never a dedicated space. And this year I ordered a ton of different seeds to get started that we can put in the cut flower garden. I have dahlias that are on order that will arrive sometime in May that will also go out there. So we should have, 1, a beautiful show of color, and 2, a lot of flowers to pick from to create some beautiful arrangements throughout the season in our home. Now, currently it's the middle of February, so we can't exactly go outside and do a whole bunch of work in the yard currently. We still have a few weeks until it's warm enough for us to go out and start actually preparing the ground and getting some of the things set up. But we can do a lot of the planning work now, and in just a few short weeks, we will be getting all of our seeds started as well. So I thought I would take you through today, show you some of the things that my daughter and I have been using together to do our garden planning, show you kind of the process that we've been following, and then give you kind of a sneak peek at what it is we're planning for the spring. So if you're totally new to gardening, one of the first things you do want to do is evaluate the space that you're working in. Now, we live in Northeast Indiana where there's a lot of heavy clay in the soil. So almost everywhere that we go to create new garden beds, we know that we're going to have to do some tilling and we're going to have to do some soil amendments. We do have plans to have some big loads of compost brought in to the new garden beds that we're putting in, and those will be worked into the ground to kind of create some good rich soil for the new plants. The other thing that is recommended is to do some soil testing. So we actually did this the other week. We went out and we took some soil samples and we've sent them off to be tested. And that's going to tell us how our soil is doing. What's the average pH of it? Does our pH run low? Does it run high? So do we have, very acidic soil? Do we have very basic soil? and then what sort of nutrients is our soil rich in and what things is it short on. Now, if you are having a student doing the Guest Hollow Botany program, there are a couple of books that I've pulled out that we have been referencing to help us with this. So one of them is this book called How Plants Work. And there is a whole section in this book. It is chapter 3, What's Essential. This chapter is amazing. It talks about all of the different nutrients that a plant needs and what happens when a plant either gets too much of that nutrient or too little of that nutrient, how it will impact their growth, their strength, their structure, their color. And it's just been a really good resource for us. So when we get those that soil analysis back and we find out what's going on in the soil that we have, we can figure out what is it that we might need to amend that soil with. What types of fertilizers might we need to have? And we will be using this book to kind of reference as far as how will those things impact the growth. Now, I've been gardening for a long time, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit I haven't tested the soil here at this property in many a year. So I will be interested to see how the soil is doing both around the home and in the areas where we're creating the new gardens. Other really great books from the Guest Hollow curriculum that we have been looking at is this one, which is called Worms Eat My Garbage. It sounds kind of funny, but it is a book all about composting, how to create compost bins, how to take care of them, what types of worms work the best in those compost bins, how do you rotate things so that way, your worms do the job of creating compost without, dying. So we are looking at this because we do have compost piles. We have piles of things in the back part of the property where we've, added stuff, but we don't have a proper compost bin or bins. And my son, who is into woodworking, has said that he will put one together for us if we design it. So we are going to look at what it is that we feel a compost bin needs, and then my son will build it for us. So that'll be a cool addition. Another great book we've been looking at is called The Complete Guide to Saving Seeds. Now, this we won't really use at the beginning of the spring, but we would like to be able to harvest seeds, particularly from some of the cut flowers near the end of the season. That way, if we'd like to replant those flowers the following year, we can do so without having to purchase, brand new ones. So this book is pretty great because it does tell you, how to do that for different types of plants, how to properly prepare the seeds, how to, make sure you're getting the right amount and the right kind and the healthiest seeds and everything. So it's just a really good book on seed saving. We also have a couple of other books that were already in my library that we pulled out to look at. We live in the Midwest, so we have the Midwest Fruit and Vegetable Gardening Guide. And then I have Vegetable Gardening in the Midwest. And last but not least, I do have a book all about herbs. So both on using them and growing them in your own garden. Now, herbs are something that we don't grow out in the garden beds. We do grow them in either pots or trays that are closer to the house since we're using those all the time. But we have been referencing and looking at these books to figure out everything from when's the right planting time for different things, what things will grow best next to each other, and how much planting space everything is going to need. Now, if you're not using the botany curriculum or you don't want to go out and purchase books, there are some great websites that have resources you can download for garden planning. One of them is My Frugal Home, and I've just got a couple of example pages that I downloaded from her website, and I will link that down below. She has this garden planning worksheet, which is just like a basic grid here, so you can map things out and write down what you're going to use below. This one, which I actually started to fill out, this is the monthly planting guide, so you can list the plants and then you can make note of when's the ideal planting time for them and when the average harvest is. And then the months are listed on the top there. But this other one I thought was super helpful last year, and so we're going to use it again this year. This is the square foot planting guide. So how many of each type of fruit or vegetable can you plant in a square foot in your garden? So if you're doing rows that are roughly a foot across, you can really kind of map it out. A lot of people think about planting rows in terms of things having to be just a straight line of things. But in reality, you can utilize the space better if you can do things kind of at angles going down or zigzag. So this tells you which plants you can only put 1 per square foot based on root size and how big the plant gets, which ones you can do 4 of, which you can do 9 of, and which you can do 16 of. For example, carrots, you can do 16 in a square foot. So you could grow a whole bunch of carrots in a square foot. So this will be really great to utilize as well as things are getting mapped out on our garden plan. But probably my favorite planning tool is the garden journal. And I will link the website where I got this from down below. I cannot remember the name of the website off the top of my head, but she has so many pages included in this download. It's a free download. You can pick and choose which ones you want to print out. It's also available in multiple different colors. So if you don't want one that's purple, they have, I think, peach and pink and blue and everything. And I was going to show you just a couple of the pages that I utilize. There are pages in here that I save from year to year. And before I get started on the next year's journal, I will copy over some information. Some I will just keep in the binder from year to year, and some I will add to. Now, to keep everything in this binder organized, you'll see that I do have tabs that I put at the top for the different months of the year. There are pages in here for specific months, and then I have tabs on the side for different categories just to help me find things a little bit easier. But this page here is designed for me to go ahead and put a summary of the whole year. I will actually start this in March with March recordings, and then it'll go until February of next year. And then things that I'm planning to do within the garden, just kind of an overall planner. For each season, there's a seasonal planning page. So what are things that are important for us to make sure that we do? So I just have some of those there, and I have room to add different categories of things. I made a note that my last projected frost date is on May the 1st. If you are looking to figure out what your projected final frost date is in your area, you can go to one of the almanac sites, like the one that I'll show here real quick. Just put in your zip code and it will tell you when your last average frost date is. Then for each month, there is a planning page as well as a calendar. So I can write in the dates and put things on here. The types of things I'll keep track of on here would be watering dates, for example, like in March, there'll be certain days of the week that I'll go through and water different things. What days will things need to be fertilized? In the summer months, I have kind of a fertilizing schedule for different areas of the garden, and then I have a weeding schedule. So certain days of the week I tackle one section, then I go to another one. That way I'm not overwhelmed trying to do too much on any one day, but these planning pages are very helpful for that. Then I get into some specific pages. So this is a list of the things that we are going to be growing in the vegetable gardens from seed. So I have a list here of all of the plants that I have purchased seeds for, the company that I got them from. And when we start the seeds, whatever date we start them, we'll put that date in there as date planted. When they move out into the garden, we will put that on there as well. And then over here in the notes, I just looked at the back of the seed packets and I made notes of a couple of pertinent things, namely the pH that the soil needs to be and how many weeks in advance that plant needs to be started. So this is how many weeks ahead of planting outside. But you'll see, for example, sugar baby watermelon needs to be started 4 weeks prior to transplanting. For some of them, there's a note here where it needs to harden for 7 days. Hardening is when you gradually expose a plant to the outdoor environment, putting it outside for a couple of hours and then gradually increasing the amount of time that plant spends outside. What that will do is make your seedlings stronger, and it will help them adjust to the temperature fluctuations outside, since they're probably going to be used to being kind of babied if you're doing them indoors or under grow lights or in a greenhouse. So this will just ensure that when you go to transplant them outside, they're just not going to, keel over on you. But you'll see I have a lot of vegetables that we are starting from seed. This one would be for edibles. So this is going to be things that we're going to purchase from like a garden center. Tomatoes is an example. We don't grow our tomatoes from seed. I do purchase them. So when I get them, I'll put the type down where I got it from. And then again, like when did I put it outside? So I have several pages put aside for that. I have if it's getting done from tubers or bulbs. I do have seed potatoes on order from Johnny's Seeds, which haven't arrived yet. They won't ship until closer to May. But when those come, I'll put that on there. And then I have a list of things that are currently in my landscape. So this was started last year, and then I'm just going to add to it year to year. So these are the different plants that are in different portions of my landscape. I keep track of where they're at, like which garden bed do I have them in and how many, when did I plant it, if I move it, and then when do we expect for it to bloom, and then when does it actually bloom. Then I have the list of the bulbs and where I got them. We planted close to 1,000 bulbs in the garden last fall. By the time I got done, I was very bulbed out, very bulbed out. So I'm keeping an eye on things now because a couple of them are starting to want to peak, which makes me a little nervous because we still got some cold weather, but we'll see how all of those perform. And then this is going to be the flower garden from seed. Similar to what we did with the vegetables, I made notes on the side of how far ahead of planting time outside do I need to get those seeds started off, and do they need to be hardened off? There's even notes of some, like for example, yarrow, it needs to be moved to 2-inch pots after 3 weeks. So if we started in the little seed trays, I do need to replant that into a larger pot. So those kind of notes are helpful for planning out what are we going to start when, and at what point do we need to start getting them hardened off before they go outside. So just a whole bunch of those. Then I have actual plant information pages. So each of those plants that you saw that were in the landscaping, so these are all perennials or evergreens that I have put into my landscaping. I keep track of them, okay, what their name is, where I planted it, what's the light requirement, what's the height and width it's going to get to, when does it bloom, and then care notes. So this is great for kind of referencing when I go back and do the seasonal tasks, because there were quite a few plants that didn't require any cutback in the fall. A lot of them, it said late winter, early spring. And so I, referenced this to make a list of which ones I needed to do that to. And I just keep adding to it all of the different plants. Other pages that we'll use will be a water tracker. So this will be for the different months as we go into like late spring, early summer. So May, June, July, August, September. And which days of the week do we do watering? So do I need to hit certain areas every day? Are some once a week? Are some just kind of as needed? Because different plants will have different requirements. And I do try to group plants in the garden based on their water requirements. So that way I'm not stressing if I overwater one plant and underwater another. But it's going to be just a helpful tool for keeping track of that. We have a page for soil condition. So how is the soil doing in different parts of the garden? So when our soil analysis comes back, we will fill that out. I have one for pests and diseases. So I kept records last year of the things that gave us trouble. When you see where we're planning to put the vining beds, that whole garden design came from the fact that we dealt with tons of squash bugs last year, and we had so much trouble getting them under control. So we are changing some things. We've added some gravel paths between things in order to try to cut down on that. We also had some issues with like powdery mildew. We had not aphids, but there was another little bug that was starting to get to my roses, and we had to treat it basically once a week with Captain Jack's and then neem oil in order to get rid of them and get those roses back to being healthy. So we had noted that in the garden journal, or I had noted that in the garden journal last year. And so that's something that I am going to keep in mind as I'm keeping an eye on plants this year. And then I have a bunch of pages of garden layout plans. So this is meant to help you if you'd like to draw out how your gardens are going to be. You can use one page and have it be all of your garden beds. You can do specific ones in different pages. This is just a really nice way to be able to kind of draw and erase and color in and get an idea on how you want to space things out. And this is what we're going to be going ahead and putting our garden plans on. So those are some of the tools and resources we're going to use as we do our garden planning. And my daughter's pretty camera shy, so she doesn't want to do this on camera, but we're going to sit down here for a little bit and we are going to draw out our current garden bed and the new garden beds that we're doing and start to get an idea of what we're going to plant where, how many plants ideally do we want to put in of each variety, and then how many seed starts we think we need to do for each plant in order to have a healthy number of seedlings for those purposes. Okay, apologies if this is a bit shaky, but I wanted to show you what we managed to get done. We designed 3 different garden beds. Took a little bit of time in configuring, but these are what we hope are going to be our ideas here. So we used the grid papers that are inside my garden planning book. And each square we just assumed was going to be a foot. So each one is a square foot in the garden. So you can see they're pretty good size beds here. And we have 2 existing raised beds in the back of this vegetable garden. So we have a big barn here, and then we actually have another barn that's here, and then this is the garden that we've had in place for a while. So we just kind of went through and we figured out what things we want to grow and in what amounts. I have strawberry plants, Seascape strawberries, on order from Johnny Seeds. They don't ship out till closer to May. But we have 25 of those, so we wanted to plant for those. And we do have some permanent blueberry bushes that are in this row here. And then we have several plants that we decided we wanted to trellis. We thought we would put them all in a row here and just do a whole line of trellising, and then do the different plants that can be trained up a trellis as opposed to taking up a whole bunch of space. But this garden here is going to have our seascape strawberries, our blueberry plants. We're going to do the tomatoes in the raised bed. We did that last year. They did very, very well. Spinach and romaine, because those can be started earlier. And then because those tend to be things that rabbits like to get into, we thought up in the raised beds would be good. And then a few pepper plants. We have got, let's see, pickling cucumbers, slicing cucumbers, pole beans. We have bush beans, carrots. This was, BR was broccoli. Okay, broccoli. Broccoli and cauliflower, and then carrots over here. And then we have 2 different varieties of onions that we're going to do there, hybrid and Walla Walla. So that's the plan for this bed. I've also marked where rain barrels go. So we don't actually have a water source out by the barn. We do have plumbing that runs out to the barn, but it's not been used in years or tested. And until I have a plumber come and take a look at it and let me know that, hey, if you reconnect this and turn it on, you're not going to have a hot mess, we use rain barrels. We put them at the ends of the barns where we have gutters coming down. And so they collect quite a bit of water, and that's used to water the gardens. So on the flip side of the barn, so there's the barn and the other vegetable garden. On this side of the barn, we're going to have the 2 new beds. So one is the cut flower bed, and the gray is indicating that we're going to do some gravel on either side. So here's the barn. We've got the raspberry bushes, more rain barrels, gravel, and then the garden, and then more gravel before we get to the vining garden. So this is all of our cut flowers. I'm not going to list all of the different varieties. There's a bunch, but we had to mark in where some of them are going to be staked. So dahlias are going to be in this row, and they require staking and support. And then we have some other plants that we're going to put down here that also require staking. And then up here, we're going to have staking for the amaranths. So those can all be supported. And then most of the ones in between will not be. Obviously, I didn't fill in all of the spaces here, and that's because we honestly don't know till we get onto the garden really how much space everything's going to take up. We based all of this on information I'll show you on the back of the seed packets. And then our last one is our vining one. It probably is the simplest looking one because these plants take a ton of space. So we're really only going to have 3 rows, and they'll be spaced out pretty good. The goal was to have at least 2 plants for each pumpkin variety that we're doing. We'll have 3 of the Casperita. Those are the real little ones. And then we've got watermelon, cantaloupe, zucchini squash, winter squash. I honestly don't know if it's going to end up fitting the way that we hope it will here. We may end up having to scale back to like 1 or 2 of some things, but we'll just kind of see how it goes. But we based all of this off the information we got on the back of our seed packets. So when you're looking at seed packets, you will find information as far as how far apart they need to be spaced. You know, for example, here I just grabbed a Snapdragon one. You want to plant them anywhere from 4 to 12 inches apart. If you're pinching them down to make them bushier, 6 to 12 inches apart. So when you're planning how many you can fit into a space, that is really helpful. The other thing that we started to look at too was when we were going to start actually getting all of the different seeds started. We didn't have time today to jump in and work on building the new grow light system that we got. We had gotten a tower. It's got 5 shelves with grow lights. And then the new outdoor greenhouse is coming. It looks like it's supposed to arrive this weekend. So the plan is to start seeds in different intervals under the grow lights and then move them into the greenhouse and then start the next batch of seeds under the grow lights. So different things take different amounts of time. So this, for example, says you really need to start sowing them 8 to 10 weeks before the last frost. And then it tells you how long to wait to harden them off. So for each thing we were looking to start from seed, whether that was a vegetable or a flower, we looked at how many weeks ahead we needed to start it. And we put that into this planner under these calendar dates. So let me find May here and show you real quick. So May is when our last projected frost date is. Ooh, focus. But we're going to be safe. We're going to go ahead and wait a week because Mother's Day here in our area is kind of when a lot of people say it's safe to start really planting. So we're going to start transplanting the week before. And then on the calendar, we marked that, hey, we're 1 week pre-transplant date, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So for each week, we marked what things we are due to start from seed. Pumpkins, for example, say you only need to start them 3 weeks before they're going to get transplanted out, whereas some weeks, like 6 weeks, here's the round of what we're supposed to do. 8 weeks, here's some, and then 10 weeks will be the earliest ones. These are the yarrow and the snapdragons. So hopefully that will keep us on schedule with things. Thanks so much for joining me today for this gardening planning video. I hope it gets you in the mood for doing a little garden planning of your own. And I really encourage you to try to get your whole family involved in the garden. With younger kids, you can have them go out and help you with weeding and harvesting. Older kids, you can definitely have them help you with these planting stages. Once we get to the part where we're doing the seed starts, I know both of my kids are going to want to get hands-on helping to get those things done. So we will keep you informed on how things are going and show you in some upcoming videos and day in the lives what we're doing to get things ready here at our home. If you enjoy these types of videos, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below to my channel so you can be notified when I post new homeschooling and mom life content. Have a great one, everybody. See you in the next video.